The sleek alien vessel dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, its crystalline hull shimmering with unknown energies. Captain Vex of the Hegemony Survey Corps had expected to find another backwater world populated by primitive creatures barely out of their Stone Age. The initial scans had shown a blue-green planet with signs of industrial activity, but nothing that suggested true spacefaring capability. "Captain," his sensor officer called out, "I'm detecting artificial structures throughout this system. Multiple space stations, orbital platforms, and—" "Wait," the officer's voice grew uncertain. "These readings can't be right." Vex approached the sensor station, reading the data himself. His 4 eyes widened in disbelief. "Thousands of active vessels? That's impossible. Our scouts reported this system as barely industrial." "Sir, those reports were filed only 50 rotations ago," the communications officer interjected. "But I'm picking up electromagnetic chatter across hundreds of frequencies. These beings are definitely space-capable." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. In the 500 years since the hegemony had begun its expansion across the galaxy, they had encountered dozens of species. Most were primitive, easily conquered, or convinced to join as vassals. The few that posed any resistance were quickly overwhelmed by superior technology and numbers. "Status of the fleet?" Vex asked. "The battle group is maintaining position in hyperspace, awaiting your signal," replied his tactical officer. 3 heavy cruisers, 12 destroyers, and 40 support vessels stand ready." Vex nodded. Standard protocol for first contact with a potentially hostile species was to demonstrate overwhelming force. Most civilizations, when faced with such firepower, would submit immediately. Those that didn't would be eliminated as a threat to hegemony expansion. "Incoming transmission, Captain," the communications officer announced. "It's in our language." The bridge crew exchanged glances. That was unusual. Most species required weeks of linguistic analysis before meaningful communication was possible. "On screen," Vex ordered. The main display flickered to life, showing a human male in what appeared to be a simple uniform. His features were unremarkable by galactic standards: bipedal, bilateral symmetry, typical mammalian characteristics. What struck Vex as odd was the human's calm demeanor. "Greetings," the human said in perfect hegemony standard. "My name is Admiral Kane of the Terran Defense Fleet. We've been monitoring your approach and would like to welcome you to the Sol system." Vex felt his scales bristle with irritation. The casual tone, the lack of deference. This creature spoke as if addressing an equal rather than a superior. "I am Captain Vex of the Hegemony Survey Corps. You will prepare your world for integration into the hegemony. Resistance will be met with overwhelming force." The human's expression didn't change. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Captain. However, we're happy to discuss a mutual non-aggression treaty. Perhaps we could arrange a meeting to discuss terms?" "Terms?" Vex's voice rose in pitch. "You dare to speak of terms with the hegemony? We have conquered 100 worlds, absorbed 50 species into our empire. Your primitive species stands no chance against our might." Admiral Kane smiled, a gesture that somehow managed to be both polite and unsettling. "Captain, with respect, our intelligence suggests your species has encountered very few space-capable civilizations. We, on the other hand, have been preparing for this moment for quite some time." The transmission ended, leaving Vex staring at a blank screen, his mind racing with questions about these strange creatures called humans. 3 days had passed since the initial contact, and Captain Vex found himself increasingly frustrated. The humans had not responded with the expected fear or submission. Instead, they had maintained their polite but firm stance, requesting a diplomatic meeting while simultaneously scrambling what appeared to be defensive formations throughout their star system. "Report!" Vex demanded as he entered the intelligence briefing room. Commander Thak, his intelligence officer, gestured to the holographic display showing the Sol system. "The situation is complex, Captain. Our deep scans have revealed capabilities far beyond what our initial surveys suggested." The display zoomed in on Earth's moon, revealing a massive installation built into the lunar surface. "This appears to be their primary military command center. Our scans indicate it's heavily fortified and extends deep underground. One moon base hardly constitutes a threat to the hegemony," Vex scoffed. That's not all, sir. Thak manipulated the display, highlighting dozens of points throughout the system. They have installations on every major body in their system. Mars appears to be fully terraformed and heavily populated. The asteroid belt has been extensively mined and contains numerous stations. Even the outer planets have significant infrastructure. Vex studied the display more carefully. How is this possible? Our scouts reported primitive radio transmissions and chemical propulsion just 50 rotations ago. That's what concerns me most, Captain. According to our historical databases, this species achieved spaceflight only 100 of their years. Ego. Their rate of technological advancement is unprecedented. The display shifted to show intercepted human communications. We've been monitoring their transmissions. Their language contains thousands of variations, but they seem to have achieved global unity remarkably quickly. They refer to themselves collectively as Terrans when dealing with external threats. External threats. Vex's curiosity was piqued. Yes, sir. Their communications suggest they've been preparing for contact with hostile alien species for decades. They have contingency plans, battle protocols, and what they call first contact scenarios that are remarkably sophisticated. Vex felt a chill run down his spine. Are you suggesting they were expecting us? Not specifically, sir, but they were certainly expecting someone. Their entire space-based infrastructure appears designed for defense against a technologically superior force. They've positioned their assets to maximize coverage and minimize the effectiveness of concentrated attacks. The intelligence officer pulled up another display showing human vessel configurations. Their ships are smaller than ours, but appear to be faster and more maneuverable. They seem to favor swarm tactics over the heavy cruiser approach we typically employ. Numbers? That's where things become truly concerning, Captain. Based on electromagnetic signatures and movement patterns, we estimate they have several thousand active vessels of various classes. If even half of those are combat-capable. Vex didn't need the sentence finished. The hegemony battle group, while formidable by previous standards, would be outnumbered 10-1. What about their weapons technology? Unknown, sir. They're using some form of electromagnetic shielding that's blocking our detailed scans. However, we have detected energy signatures consistent with directed energy weapons, kinetic projectiles, and what might be some form of exotic matter manipulation. Exotic matter? That's theoretical even by our standards. Yes, sir. Which raises another disturbing possibility. Their rate of technological development may be accelerating. They might be significantly more advanced now than they were even days ago. Vex stared at the tactical display, his confidence beginning to waver. Everything about this first contact was wrong. The humans should have been primitive, frightened, easily conquered. Instead, they appeared to be a unified, technologically sophisticated species that had somehow anticipated this exact scenario. Captain, his communications officer's voice crackled over the intercom. Admiral Kane is requesting another conversation. He says he has a proposal that might interest us. Vex closed his eyes and took a deep breath. For the first time in his career, he was beginning to understand what it meant to be outmaneuvered before the battle had even begun. Admiral Kane's image appeared on the main screen of Vex's command bridge, his expression as calm and measured. As before, behind him, the human command center bustled with activity. Officers moving with practiced efficiency. Displays showing tactical information that Vex couldn't quite decipher from this distance. Captain Vex, Kane began. I trust you've had time to consider our situation. I believe we can reach an arrangement that benefits both our species. Vex straightened in his command chair, trying to project authority despite his growing unease. The hegemony does not negotiate with primitive species. You will submit to integration or face the consequences. Kane's slight smile never wavered. Captain, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding. We're not a primitive species, and this isn't a negotiation about our surrender. This is an opportunity for both our civilizations to avoid unnecessary bloodshed. You speak boldly for someone whose entire species faces extinction, Vex retorted, though the words felt hollow even as he spoke them. Do we? Kane leaned forward slightly. Captain, in the past 72 hours, we've observed your standard first contact protocol. One survey vessel approaches, assesses the target, then calls in a battle group for pacification. It's an effective, Strategy against species that haven't developed beyond their home system. Vex's blood ran cold. How do you... We've been monitoring your communications since you arrived, Kane interrupted gently. Your encryption is sophisticated but not unbreakable. We know you have 55 vessels in hyperspace waiting for your signal. We also know this is the largest force the hegemony has ever assembled for a first contact scenario. The bridge fell silent. Vex could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. What do you want? Information, Kane replied simply. You see, Captain, we're not just defending our home system. We're preparing for something much larger. Your species isn't the only one expanding through this galaxy, and from what we've learned, you're not even the most dangerous. Kane gestured, and the display behind him changed to show a star map. 6 months ago, we detected the complete sterilization of the Kepler 442 system. No survivors, no wreckage, just empty space where a thriving civilization once existed. 3 months ago, the same thing happened to the Proxima Centauri colonies. Vex recognized those systems. They had been on the hegemony's expansion list, but when survey ships arrived, they found nothing but dead worlds. You think you know what happened to them? We know exactly what happened to them, Kane said grimly. The same thing that's been happening to civilizations across this spiral arm for the past decade. Something is systematically eliminating advanced species, and it's moving in our direction. The human admiral paused, letting the implications sink in. The hegemony has been expanding for 500 years, Captain. In all that time, how many space-capable species have you actually encountered? Vex thought back through the records. Dozens of primitive species, certainly, but actual spacefaring civilizations? Perhaps a dozen? In 500 years of expansion across thousands of systems, you found only 12 space-capable species. Don't you find that statistically improbable? The question hit Vex like a physical blow. He had never considered it before, but Kane was right. The galaxy should be teeming with intelligent life, yet they rarely encountered anything beyond primitive tool users. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that something has been systematically eliminating advanced civilizations long before the hegemony reached them. Something that views spacefaring species as a threat to be contained. Kane's expression grew serious. We call them the Cleaners, and they're coming this way. Vex felt his world shift beneath him. How do you know this? Because we've been fighting them for 20 years, Kane replied quietly. Small engagements, border skirmishes, probing attacks. They've been testing our defenses, learning our capabilities. The attacks on Kepler 442 and Proxima Centauri weren't random. They were eliminating potential allies before making their move against us. And you think the hegemony? I think the hegemony is next on their list, Kane finished. Unless we work together. Captain, we're not asking you to surrender. We're asking you to help us save both our species from extinction. The bridge was dead silent as Vex processed this information. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy, about the hegemony's place in it, was crumbling around him. What exactly are you proposing? Kane's smile returned, but now it carried a hint of grim determination. An alliance, Captain. Your fleet's firepower combined with our tactical knowledge. Together, we might actually stand a chance when the Cleaners arrive. And when will that be? Kane checked something off-screen. Based on their pattern of advancement, approximately 6 months. They'll hit the hegemony's outer colonies first, then work their way toward the core worlds. Unless we stop them here. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of unprecedented activity. For the first time in hegemony history, their military commanders found themselves working alongside an alien species as equals rather than conquerors. The cultural shock was profound, but the looming threat of the Cleaners left little time for traditional prejudices. Captain Vex stood in the main conference room of Terra Station, the humans' primary orbital facility. The room had been hastily modified to accommodate both species. Atmospheric controls adjusted, furniture scaled appropriately, and translation matrices installed to facilitate real-time communication between dozens of officers from both fleets. Admiral, Kane stood before a massive holographic display showing the local galactic region. Red markers indicated systems that had gone silent in recent years, while blue markers showed current hegemony and Terran positions. The pattern was unmistakable, a wave of destruction moving steadily toward their current location. The cleaners follow a consistent pattern, Kane explained to the mixed assembly. They begin with long-range reconnaissance, using stealth probes to assess defensive capabilities. Then they launch coordinated strikes against infrastructure and command centers, followed by systematic elimination of all space-based assets. Commander Thak, representing the Hegemony Intelligence Corps, studied the tactical projections. Their technology must be significantly advanced to achieve such thorough destruction so quickly. It is, confirmed Dr. Lisa Park, Terra's chief xenobiologist. Based on debris analysis from previous attacks, they employ weapons that can destabilize stellar matter itself. Entire stars have been collapsed into neutron density in a matter of hours. A collective shudder ran through the hegemony officers. Such power was beyond their comprehension. However, Kane continued, they have one significant weakness. They rely on overwhelming technological superiority and expect their targets to fight conventionally. They've never faced an enemy that refused to play by established rules of engagement. Vex leaned forward. What do you mean? Humans have a saying, Captain. When you can't win by the rules, change the game. Kane manipulated the display, showing theoretical battle scenarios. The cleaners expect their enemies to meet them in direct combat, fleet against fleet. We're not going to do that. The display shifted to show the Sol system's defensive arrangements. Vex was amazed by the complexity. Not just the obvious military installations, but civilian infrastructure repurposed for defense, commercial vessels, retrofitted as weapons platforms, and what appeared to be industrial facilities designed for rapid warship production. Every human installation in this system can be weaponized within hours, explained Colonel Martinez, the Terran defense coordinator. Every civilian ship can carry weapons. Every space habitat can serve as a fortress. We don't just have a military, we have an entire civilization prepared for total war. But how is this possible? Asked Commander Rix, the Hegemony's senior tactician. Such preparation would require decades of planning and unprecedented resource allocation. Kane and Park exchanged glances. Captain Vex, Kane said carefully, there's something else you need to understand about humans. We don't just prepare for the threats we can see, we prepare for the threats we can imagine. The display changed again, showing Earth's history. Cities destroyed by wars, civilizations collapsed by disasters, species driven to extinction by environmental changes. Humans have survived multiple extinction events on our homeworld. We've fought wars that consumed entire continents, faced plagues that killed millions, weathered climate disasters that reshaped our planet. We are, quite literally, evolution's survivors. Dr. Park picked up the explanation. When we first achieved spaceflight, our governments didn't see it as an opportunity for expansion. They saw it as preparation for the next extinction event. Everything we've built, every technology we've developed, every strategy we've crafted has been designed with one goal: species survival. Vex stared at the humans around him with new understanding. These weren't just another spacefaring species. They were a civilization forged by catastrophe, shaped by the constant expectation of disaster. So when our deep space telescopes started detecting the systematic destruction of advanced civilizations, Kane continued, we didn't panic. We prepared. We studied the patterns, analyzed the tactics, and developed countermeasures. And now you're sharing this preparation with us, Vex said slowly. Because we need each other, Kane confirmed. Human tactical innovation combined with hegemony firepower and industrial capacity. Neither of us can survive this alone, but together. Together we change the rules of the game, Vex finished. The room fell silent as both species processed the magnitude of what they were attempting. An alliance between civilizations that had never cooperated as equals, against an enemy that had never been successfully resisted. There's one more thing, Kane said quietly. The cleaners aren't just eliminating civilizations randomly. They're targeting species that show specific characteristics: rapid technological advancement, aggressive expansion, and most importantly, the potential for cooperation between different intelligence types. The implication hit Vex immediately. They see us as a threat. The greatest threat they've ever encountered, Kane agreed. Which means when they come, they won't just be trying to conquer us. They'll be trying to prevent us from becoming something unprecedented in galactic history. What's that? Asked Commander Thack. Kane's smile was grim but determined. The first successful alliance of spacefaring species. The beginning of something larger than either of our civilizations could achieve. Alone. The transformation of the Sol system over the following months was nothing short of extraordinary. What had begun as a desperate alliance between two species had evolved into something unprecedented in galactic history. A true fusion of military doctrine, technology, and strategic thinking. Captain Vex, now bearing the joint rank of Fleet Commander in the newly formed Terran Hegemony Defense Alliance, stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned vessel Defiance. The ship itself was a marvel of hybrid engineering, hegemony shield technology and weapons platforms integrated with human propulsion systems and tactical computers. The result was a vessel unlike anything either species had produced independently. Status report, Vex requested, his voice now carrying the authority of someone who had learned to command not just his own species, but a truly integrated force. Commander Lisa Park, formerly Dr. Park and now serving as his human counterpart, approached with a data tablet. Over the months of preparation, she had proven herself a capable tactical officer despite her scientific background. All defensive positions are reporting ready status. The asteroid belt fortifications are fully operational. Mars Defense Command is coordinating with Lunabase, and our deep space sensor networks are functioning at optimal capacity. Vex nodded, studying the tactical display that showed their preparations. The humans had taught the hegemony forces their concept of defense in depth. Rather than meeting the enemy at a single point, they had created multiple layers of resistance throughout the system. Every planet, moon, asteroid, and space station had been turned into a potential fortress. What about the fleet compositions? Vex asked. Mixed crews are performing better than projected, Park replied. The language barriers have been largely overcome, and the tactical integration is proceeding ahead of schedule. Human officers are adapting well to hegemony command structures, and your people have embraced our more flexible operational doctrines. This was perhaps the most remarkable development of their alliance. Rather than maintaining separate command structures, they had integrated their forces at every level. Human creativity and adaptability complemented hegemony discipline and firepower in ways that surprised both species. Sir, called out Lieutenant Jim Torres from the communications station. We're receiving updates from the outer sensor posts. The probe network is detecting unusual hyperspace distortions in the Vega sector. Vex and Park exchanged glances. They had been expecting this moment for weeks. How many sources? At least 50 distinct signatures, possibly more. They're using some form of hyperspace masking that's interfering with our sensors. Range and approach vector? Approximately 6 light-years out and closing. Based on the distortion patterns, they should reach the outer system in approximately 18 hours. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. After months of preparation, the cleaners were finally coming. Signal Admiral Kane, Vex ordered. Initiate Defense Protocol 7. Throughout the Sol system, alert signals began broadcasting. On Earth, massive underground shelters sealed their entrances as the civilian population moved to predetermined safe zones. On Mars, orbital defense platforms powered up their weapons systems. In the asteroid belt, hidden military installations activated their targeting systems. But the most dramatic changes occurred in the outer system. What had appeared to be routine mining operations and research stations suddenly revealed their true nature. Concealed weapons platforms, disguised as industrial equipment, swiveled toward the approaching threat. Civilian vessels, secretly retrofitted, with military-grade systems, moved to predetermined positions. Commander Park, Vex said formally, please transmit our message to the approaching fleet. Park nodded and activated the system-wide communication array. Throughout the Sol system, both human and hegemony installations received the same message. To the species known as the Cleaners, you have systematically eliminated dozens of civilizations across this galaxy, believing that advanced spacefaring species pose a threat to your dominance. You are correct. We do pose a threat, not to innocent species, but to those who would commit genocide on a galactic scale. We are the Terran Hegemony Defense Alliance, representing the first successful cooperation between spacefaring species in recorded galactic history. We have studied your tactics analyzed your technology, and prepared countermeasures for your weapons. You have never faced unified resistance because you eliminated the possibility of alliances before they could form. That ends today. We are not primitive species fighting for survival. We are civilizations that have chosen to stand together. You will find no easy victory here. You will find no cowering primitives. You will find something unprecedented in your experience, an enemy that refuses to be eliminated. Welcome to Sol. Let's see how your weapons perform against species that fight back. As the message concluded, Vex felt a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. Everything they had worked for, everything they had built, would be tested in the coming battle. "Commander Park," he said quietly, "do you believe we can win?" Park smiled, the same confident expression he had first seen on Admiral Kane months ago. "Commander Vex, we've already won the most important victory. We've proven that different species can work together against a common threat, whether we survive the next few days or not. We've changed the rules of the game forever. And that matters? It matters because even if we fall, we've shown other species that resistance is possible. The Cleaner's greatest weapon was never their technology. It was the belief that resistance was futile. We've just proven that belief wrong." Vex nodded, understanding flooding through him. Win or lose, they had already achieved something remarkable. They had created hope where none had existed before. "All stations report ready, sir," Torres called out. "Then let's show the galaxy what two species can accomplish when they refuse to surrender," Vex replied. The final phase of their preparations was complete. Now, they would discover whether their unprecedented alliance was strong enough to face the galaxy's greatest threat. The Cleaners emerged from hyperspace precisely on schedule, their fleet a testament to technological superiority and ruthless efficiency. 18 hours after the first sensor contacts, nearly 200 vessels of various configurations dropped into normal space at the edge of the Sol system. Commander Vex watched from the bridge of the Defiance as the enemy fleet arranged itself, in the characteristic formation intelligence had predicted. A sphere of heavy cruisers surrounding a core of massive dreadnoughts, with scout vessels spreading out to assess defensive positions. "They're following the standard pattern," reported Commander Park from her position at the tactical station. "Reconnaissance phase first, then systematic elimination of defensive installations." "Good," Vex replied, surprising his mixed crew. "That means they haven't adapted their tactics for us specifically. They still expect conventional resistance." The first phase unfolded exactly as predicted. Cleaner scout ships began probing the outer system defenses, targeting what appeared to be sensor stations and communication relays. Their weapons were devastating, beams of coherent energy that could punch through hegemony shields like paper and reduce human armor plating to constituent atoms. But as the scouts engaged their targets, they discovered something unexpected. The installations they were destroying were decoys, sophisticated projections and expendable platforms designed to mask the true defensive positions. Every destroyed target provided valuable intelligence about Cleaner weapons and tactics while revealing nothing about the Alliance's actual capabilities. "Phase 1 is proceeding according to plan," Park reported. "Enemy scouts are committing to attack patterns. Recommend initiation of Phase 2. Vex nodded. "All units, execute Phase 2. Let's show them what happens when the prey fights back." Throughout the outer system, installations that had appeared destroyed suddenly revealed their true nature. Asteroids that had been apparently vaporized opened to reveal hidden weapons platforms. Debris fields from destroyed ships reorganized into attack formations as the wreckage activated concealed propulsion systems. The Cleaners found themselves under attack from directions they hadn't expected, by weapons they couldn't immediately identify. Human-designed stealth technology combined with hegemony firepower created a nightmare scenario for an enemy accustomed to overwhelming technological superiority. "Sir," called out Lieutenant Torres, "we're receiving status reports from all sectors. Phase 2 is achieving projected effectiveness levels. Enemy scout formations are taking heavy casualties. Cleaner main fleet is responding," Park added, studying her displays. "They're accelerating their timeline, moving to Phase 3 of their own doctrine." Vex watched as the enemy dreadnoughts began advancing toward the inner system, their massive weapons charging for what should have been the decisive engagement. According to every previous encounter, this was where the Cleaners would demonstrate their superior firepower and break the defenders' will to resist. "All fleet elements, prepare for Phase 3, Vex commanded. Remember, we're not trying to win a conventional engagement. We're trying to prove that conventional engagement is impossible. The Alliance fleet moved to meet the cleaner advance, but not in the formation the enemy expected. Instead of presenting a unified battle line, they scattered into dozens of smaller formations, each following seemingly random courses through the system. What followed was unlike any space battle in recorded history. The cleaners, expecting to face organized resistance, found themselves fighting dozens of separate engagements simultaneously. Every time they concentrated firepower to destroy one formation, two others would appear from unexpected directions. Human, tactical doctrine based on centuries of warfare against superior opponents had been adapted for space combat. Instead of standing and fighting, they hit and ran. Instead of defending fixed positions, they made every position expendable while maintaining overall strategic coherence. Enemy formations are beginning to show confusion, Park reported. They're trying to adapt to our tactics, but their command structure isn't designed for this kind of fluid engagement. Excellent. Time for Phase 4. This was the moment Vex had been both anticipating and dreading. Phase 4 required the Alliance fleet to do something that went against every military instinct both species possessed. They had to appear to break and run. Throughout the system, Alliance vessels began what appeared to be a full retreat toward Earth. To the cleaners, it must have looked like the familiar pattern of enemy collapse they had seen in dozens of previous conquests. Enemy fleet is pursuing, Torres reported. All formations converging on Earth's orbital space. Perfect, Vex said grimly. Now we find out if our final gamble pays off. The cleaner fleet, confident in their approaching victory, accelerated toward Earth in a tight formation designed to deliver maximum firepower against the planet's orbital defenses. They were following the same pattern that had worked successfully against every other spacefaring species they had encountered. But as they closed on Earth, they discovered that the Terran Hegemony Alliance had one more surprise waiting for them. All stations, Vex broadcast, execute Operation Mousetrap. Every piece of space debris, every disabled satellite, every apparently abandoned installation throughout the inner system suddenly activated. The cleaners found themselves not approaching a defeated planet, but flying into the largest weapons platform ever constructed. The entire Sol system had been turned into a single massive trap, and the cleaners had flown directly into its center. Sir, Park said quietly, enemy fleet is completely surrounded. They're trapped in optimal firing position for every weapon system we've deployed. Vex allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before giving the final order. All weapons, fire. 3 days after the Battle of Sol, Commander Vex stood in the observation deck of Terra Station, looking out at a sight no one in galactic history had ever witnessed before. The wreckage of a cleaner fleet. The massive alien vessels, once instruments of unstoppable destruction, now drifted as silent monuments to the power of unexpected alliance. The battle itself had lasted only 6 hours, but those 6 hours had changed everything. For the first time in recorded history, the cleaners had not just been defeated. They had been completely destroyed. Not a single enemy vessel had escaped to report back to their command structure. The casualty reports are finalized, Commander Park said, as she joined him at the observation window. Her left arm was in a regeneration sleeve, a reminder that their victory had not come without cost. Final count. 47 Alliance vessels lost, with approximately 3,000 personnel casualties. The cleaners lost their entire fleet, estimated at 30,000 beings. Vex nodded solemnly. Even in victory, the numbers were sobering. Each lost ship represented dozens of lives from both species, beings who had died proving that cooperation was possible between different forms of intelligence. What have we learned from the captured technology? He asked. More than we had hoped, Park replied. Dr. Kim's analysis teams have been working around the clock. The cleaners' technology is indeed advanced, but it's also specialized. They've spent so long eliminating opposition that they never developed tactics for prolonged engagement against adaptive enemies. And their origins? That's the most disturbing discovery. Park activated a holographic display showing the galactic map. Based on their navigation systems and historical records, the cleaners have been active for over 10,000 years. They've systematically eliminated approximately 300 spacefaring civilizations. Vex felt a chill despite the station's warmth. 300 civilizations. How many species might have developed space travel if not for their interference? Conservative estimates suggest over 1,000, Park replied quietly. The cleaners haven't just been preventing individual species from expanding. They've been preventing the natural evolution of galactic civilization itself. The implications were staggering. The galaxy should have been filled with diverse civilizations, trading, cooperating, perhaps even forming the kind of alliance they had created. Instead, it had been artificially maintained as a collection of isolated primitive worlds, never allowed to develop beyond the point where they might pose a threat to cleaner dominance. However, Park continued, their defeat here changes everything. We've intercepted their communication protocols, and we know they were in contact with a larger command structure. When they don't report back, other cleaner fleets will investigate. Vex finished. Eventually, yes, but we've bought ourselves time, potentially years. Time to prepare. Time to find other surviving species. And time to spread the knowledge that resistance is possible. Admiral Kane entered the observation deck, his expression mixing exhaustion with satisfaction. The months of preparation and the intensity of the battle had aged him visibly, but his eyes held a light that hadn't been there before. The light of possibilities opened rather than closed. The Joint Council has reached a decision, Kane announced. We're proceeding with Operation Reconnection. Vex turned from the window. The deep space missions? 50 joint expeditions, each with mixed crews and hybrid technology. We're going to visit every system where we detected signs of spacefaring civilization before the cleaners arrived. If there are survivors, we'll find them. If there are ruins, we'll study them. If there are species on the verge of achieving space travel, we'll make contact. And if we encounter more cleaner fleets? Kane's smile was grim but determined. Then, we'll teach them the same lesson we taught this one, that the age of galactic tyranny is ending. Over the following weeks, the first reconnection fleets departed Sol, each carrying the hybrid technology and tactical knowledge that had won the Battle of Sol. But more importantly, they carried something unprecedented in recent galactic history, proof that different species could work together as equals. The first reports began arriving months later. A human hegemony team had made contact with survivors of the Proxima Centauri attack, a small colony that had hidden in the system's outer asteroid belt. Another expedition found the remnants of an advanced civilization in the Kepler system, their technology nearly intact, and their historical records revealing centuries of technological advancement before the cleaners' arrival. Most significantly, they discovered that they weren't alone in their resistance. 3 other species had managed to survive cleaner attacks through various means. Deep space nomads who had never established fixed colonies, a species that had hidden their technological development by maintaining primitive surface civilizations, while building advanced installations underground, and a collective intelligence that had dispersed itself across multiple star systems to avoid complete elimination. We're not just rebuilding what was lost, Park observed during one of their regular briefings. We're building something that never existed before, a true galactic community. Vex nodded, studying the growing network of contacts and alliances, spreading across their local galactic region. The cleaners sought to prevent the rise of spacefaring civilizations. Instead, they've created the conditions for something much more dangerous to their dominance. What's that? A galaxy full of species that understand the value of cooperation, that have been tested by adversity, and that refuse to be eliminated. Vex gestured to the display showing their expanding network of allies. We're not just survivors. We're the foundation of something unprecedented. As he spoke, another report arrived from the deep space expeditions. The team exploring the former Vega colonies had discovered not ruins, but a thriving underground civilization that had been hiding from the cleaners for decades. They possessed advanced terraforming technology and were eager to join the growing alliance. Kane smiled as he read the report. Every world they failed to completely eliminate becomes a new ally. Every species they underestimated adds to our strength. The cleaners spent 10,000 years creating a galaxy full of potential allies, and they never realized it. 6 months after the Battle of Sol, the first Galactic Alliance Council convened aboard the newly constructed Station Unity, positioned at the gravitational balance point between Earth and the hegemony's nearest colony, world. Representatives from 17 different species gathered in a chamber designed to accommodate the vast diversity of galactic intelligence. atmospheric zones for different breathing requirements, gravity fields adjusted for various physiologies, and communication systems that could translate between dozens of languages in real time. Commander Vex, now bearing the title of Alliance Defense Coordinator, addressed the assembled delegates. 6 months ago, most of our species believed we were alone in the galaxy. Today, we represent the largest cooperative venture in recorded galactic history. The delegates, some humanoid, others utterly alien in appearance, listened with the attention of beings who understood they were witnessing history. Among them sat representatives of the crystal-based collective minds from the Rigel system, the aquatic Thalans whose ships traveled through liquid-filled corridors, and the energy beings from the Arcturus region who communicated through controlled electromagnetic pulses. But we cannot become complacent, Vex continued. Intelligence gathered from cleaner archives suggests that our victory at Sol has not gone unnoticed. Long-range sensors have detected massive fleet movements in the galactic core region. The cleaners are marshaling their forces for a response unlike anything they've deployed in millennia. Dr. Park, now serving as Alliance Science Coordinator, activated the central holographic display. Based on intercepted communications and tactical analysis, we estimate they're preparing a fleet of over 10,000 vessels for what they're calling the Final Sterilization Protocol. A ripple of concern passed through the assembled delegates. Even with their growing alliance, such numbers seemed overwhelming. However, Park continued, we have advantages they cannot anticipate. Every species in this alliance brings unique capabilities and perspectives. The Thalans' bioships can adapt and heal during combat. The Arcturians can interface directly with electronic systems. The Rigelians can process tactical information at speeds that exceed our fastest computers. Kane, now bearing the title of Alliance Strategic Commander, stepped forward. Most importantly, we're no longer fighting to survive. We're fighting to ensure that no species ever again faces the choice between submission and extinction. Over the following hour, the Council reviewed reports from across the Alliance. Industrial capacity was expanding exponentially as different species shared their manufacturing technologies. New ship designs combined the best features of multiple civilizations. Defensive installations were being constructed throughout Alliance, space using hybrid technologies that no single species could have developed alone. The cleaners expect to face the same kind of desperate, isolated resistance they've always encountered, observed Dr. Kim, the lead xenobiologist whose analysis had proven crucial to understanding cleaner technology. Instead, they'll face a coordinated defense involving 17 species, hundreds of worlds, and tactical approaches they've never encountered. But perhaps the most significant development was happening at the individual level. Throughout Alliance space, mixed crews were becoming the norm rather than the exception. Human engineers worked alongside hegemony tacticians and Thalan biotechnicians. Cultural exchange programs were introducing new concepts of cooperation and innovation to species that had been isolated for millennia. We've achieved something the cleaners never anticipated, Vex observed as the council session concluded. Not just military alliance, but genuine integration. We're becoming something new, not human, not hegemony, not any single species, but truly galactic in scope. The final reports of the day came from the deep space exploration fleets. Contact had been established with 12 additional surviving civilizations. Archaeological teams had recovered advanced technologies from worlds the cleaners thought they had completely sterilized. Most significantly, evidence was mounting that the cleaners themselves were not the ultimate threat. They appeared to be the military arm of something even larger and more dangerous. As the delegates dispersed to their respective ships and worlds, Vex remained behind with Kane and Park, looking out at the stars visible through the station's vast observation ports. "Do you think we're ready?" Park asked quietly. "For the cleaners." Response? "Probably not," Kane replied honestly. "But that's not the right question anymore." "What is the right question?" Vex asked. Kane smiled. The same confident expression that had marked their first encounter, but now tempered with the wisdom of experience and the weight of responsibility. "The right question is, are we building something worth fighting for? Something that will survive even if we don't?" Vex looked out at the growing constellation of Alliance vessels, representing 17 different approaches to spaceflight, 17 different solutions to the challenges of galactic civilization. In the distance, construction crews were working. on the framework of what would become the first truly interspecies city, a habitat designed from the ground up to accommodate the needs of multiple intelligent species. Yes, he said finally. We're building the galaxy the cleaners tried to prevent. A place where cooperation is stronger than conquest, where diversity is valued over dominance, and where no species stands alone against the darkness. As if summoned by his words, new signals began arriving from the deep space sensor networks. More species requesting contact, more worlds asking to join the alliance, more evidence that the galaxy was far from empty. It had simply been waiting for someone to prove that resistance was possible. The age of the cleaners was ending. The age of the Galactic Alliance was just beginning. And in the depths of space, heading toward Alliance territory, the largest fleet ever assembled was about to discover that the rules of galactic warfare had changed forever. The prey had learned to fight back, and they were no longer alone.